Can you
Yes.
introduce me? Then I will go for.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. A very good evening to all. The great Abdul Kalam says, all of us do not have equal talent, but all of us have an equal opportunity to develop our talents. We have also numerous opportunity, so utilize our opportunity to lead our life success. Thank you. I am pleased to welcome you to this second day of International Virtual Faculty Development Program on behalf of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University Curriculum Planning and Evaluation in collaboration with Department of Educational Technology, Bharathidasan University organizes on outcome-based curriculum. Now I would like to call upon Dr. S. Amuta ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of Educational Technology, Bharathidasan University, and one of the program secretary to deliver the welcome address and introducing the resource person. Please ma'am, unmute yourself. Ma'am? Yes ma'am.
Good evening to one and all.
Yes.
I welcome our resource person, the learned academicians from Bharathidasan University, Teachers Education University, and participants from different parts of India to witness the second day deliberation of 5-day faculty development program on outcome-based curriculum. Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives, said by William A. Foster. Ken Blanche says, a leader is anyone who can give you the support and direction you need to achieve your goal. In that way, Professor Bragadiswaran is an outstanding leader who will lead us in the correct path to reach the goal. It is my privilege and honor to speak few words about Professor Dr. D. Pragadiswaran, who is a 73-year-old dynamic young man. Presently, he is serving as Emeritus Professor in Vellore Institute of Technology. He has spent 38 years of his valuable time at NITTR, that is National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and Research, for training the teachers. He is an expert in developing curriculum for specific disciplines, which is well appreciated by many. He has designed courses on strategic planning for technical institutions, a practical approach, and delivered in MOOCs platform too. He is a certified accreditor for Asia Pacific Accreditation and Certification Commission and the National Board of Accreditation. He has served as a honorary vice president of SEED Chennai. He was the project coordinator for Canada-India Institutional Project. He had been as a consultant for 130 organizations funded by World Bank and Canadian International Development Agency. He has conducted 32 workshops and trained 1,280 participants around 30 countries. He has also designed and organized 390 competency-based training programs and trained 14,600 technical teachers and administrators from 30 countries. He has guided 128 research and development projects, and also 16 scholars were completed their PhD under his able guidance, and all are holding key positions now. There are lots and lots of information left out to say about his achievement. Due to time constraint, I start with a small introduction and invite the sir to proceed with his presentation. I assure that the audience here will be benefited for an hour. Thank you. Sir, you can proceed, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible? My screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I am unable to move the slide. Are you able to see my slide? Is there any change to be made there? Kamala, one second, 1 second. At the outset, I welcome all the participants who are registered for participation in this webinar on competency-based curriculum development. I am sure that the need for learning the topic competency-based curriculum development is well understood. Even the new education policy emphasizes the curriculum framework, what is the need for autonomous colleges and university teachers to develop the curriculum. So this is a very needed skill. My style of presentation will be, I will not read, now I am able to move. My style of presentation is, I will not read each and every word in the slide. I will give the gist of it. The PowerPoint of my presentation can be shared with the participants later on. Is everything is okay, madam?
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
So, overview of my presentation, I will tell about what is curriculum, what is the difference between syllabus and curriculum, how decisions are made while developing a curriculum. 3 criteria we use: utility, variety, and flexibility. And what is the new approach called competency-based curriculum development when compared to the traditional academic-based curriculum development. 4 phases of curriculum process: design, development, implementation, evaluation. Finally, I will give a summary of what are the trends that are coming up, especially during the pandemic that is happening now. So what is curriculum? Curriculum is a systematic group of courses or subjects required to be studied for graduation or certification in a major field. It may be engineering or medicine, arts, science, mathematics, etc. Then the definition or attributes of curriculum are: it is related to an occupation, lawyer, doctor, engineer, like that. The content is based on objectives. Based on specific objectives, the content, subject matters. The learning experiences, theory, practical, project work are planned. Time allotted for each course, each activity is specified for the entire program. Criteria for evaluation of students' performance. How are we going to evaluate the students, and how we are going to award them first class, second class, things like that. Then components of the curriculum of the program: list of courses, including core courses and elective, POs, program object outcomes and student learning outcomes, program specific outcomes, especially in engineering programs, specifically emphasized by accrediting agencies like National Board of Accreditation. Syllabus for each course, details of how we are going to evaluate students, criteria for certification. Now I will distinguish between curriculum and syllabus. Curriculum is 3-dimensional in that it takes care of the students, their contents, and instructional methodology. Syllabus only focuses on the subject matter or content. Curriculum is operated at the institute level or university level, whereas syllabus is operated at the course level, especially at the autonomous colleges or deemed universities. The course, the faculty member who operates the course, he develops the syllabus and he sets the question paper, he conducts the examination. And it is merely descriptive, whereas curriculum is prescriptive with the list of entry-level requirements, list of courses to be studied within the duration, evaluation and certification. In short, curriculum is holistic, syllabus is narrow and specific. In terms of mathematics, we can consider curriculum as a set, syllabus as a subset of curriculum. The syllabus will contain content for each course, broad time allocations for individual units, and the learning resources that are to be used by the student. Now, what are the defects or deficiencies in the syllabus of your course? In an actual live session, I will spend a lot of time with the discussion. Here, as discussion is not possible, I am going to this. First is, the depth of treatment is not clearly defined in the syllabus. So we use the previous question papers to delimit what is to be taught, what will not be taught. So what is happening is question papers decide what will be taught in a college, not the curriculum. Topics and contents are not sequenced logically, so there is discontinuity. Third defect is each subject is taught, each course is taught in a watertight compartment. There is no indication of the links between various courses. Fourth defect is there is no link between the syllabus and instructional methods. I will give an example. If the curriculum emphasizes case study, but in the examination, if case study questions are not asked, students will not, or teachers will not use case study. And the instructional resources and learning materials used. I remember a case in one university, one textbook was prescribed. Only one copy was available. What I am telling is 1980s. And that copy was available with the teacher. And no other student had access. Whereas now, what is happening is, if the syllabus is there, many people start using cookbook type of notes and guides. And the last defect is, there is no clear-cut table of specification or specification regarding question paper setting or evaluation of students. So most of the tests lack validity, that is truthfulness, reliability, trustworthiness, or consistency. So while making decisions at the time of curriculum design and development, we use three criteria: utility, usefulness, especially in professional courses, that is considered very important; variety, then flexibility. I will take each criteria and explain. Utility criteria. When selecting the content, we have to have three levels. What is must know, core; should know, electives; nice to know, you can leave it for self-study. Because the duration of the program is fixed there. You cannot go on adding more and more subject matter. We have to prioritize them in terms of usefulness. The criterion of variety, in terms of learning experiences and teaching methods, we have to have interesting variety of learning. Blended learning, offline, the physical training in the classroom, online training, project-based learning, everything can be used. Flexibility, horizontal and vertical mobility, especially the new education policy says 4-year degree programs. You can leave with a certificate at the end of first year, diploma at the end of second year, third year with a normal degree, fourth year with honors. So multiple entry, modular approach, fully flexible field system. So there is a lot of flexibility while entering the program as well as exiting the program. You can have core and elective courses as it is conventionally done in universities. There are two approaches to curriculum development: academic approach, which is based on subjects; the competency-based approach, which is based on job and occupation. Competency means what? Is the ability to perform a specific task which is part of a profession or job. If you take a teacher, irrespective of whether he is teaching science or maths or language, he or she should have some specific competency. I will give the example, like using a chalkboard, preparing a PowerPoint, and developing a lab manual, setting a question paper, and also preparing the laboratory for laboratory-oriented work. These are all some of the competencies required. If you take the healthcare professionals, in terms of healthcare, if you take a nurse, The competencies required of a nurse are giving injection, measuring vital parameters like blood pressure, temperature, oxygen level, etc. So a competency is part of the profession or job. The competency will include the required knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So let us compare the traditional approach with the new approach. The academic approach I will do with first subject approach, competence-based system approach. This is knowledge-based, whereas the job or occupation based. This is based on analysis of subject matter and disciplines, whereas this is based on analysis of policies, labor market and occupations. For example, in 1980s, we had MCA course very popular. Now that has many colleges are closing MCA program. Instead of that, they are having BECSC and BEIT, BTech IT. Now they are going for artificial intelligence, Internet of Things like that. There will be shifts. The academic approach is based on prerequisites and levels, whereas competency-based approach is based on jobs and tasks. What is the difference between job and task? Job is a bigger one. For example, I gave the example of a nurse, healthcare worker. If she has to maintain the vital parameter, that is a job. Task will be measuring the BP, measuring the temperature, pulse, and taking the oxygen level. Organize curriculum according to the logic of the discipline. That is why in teacher education curriculum, many of the college universities have philosophy, sociology, psychology, and things like that. Whereas in competency-based curriculum, we have how to use a chalkboard, how to prepare a PowerPoint, how to develop a curriculum, how to set a question paper. It is based on jobs and tasks. In both the things, we have to develop instruction. What is to be learned, how it will be done, what are the textbooks and exams. Here, who are the learners? It will also give exemption for prior learning. The new education policy also says, if somebody has learned something earlier, that credit can be accumulated and transferred to another university. What are the objectives and outcomes? What are the learning strategies and instructional methods? What are the instructional or teaching aids or learning resources? How will you evaluate validity and reliability? Now we move on to curriculum process. There are 4 phases: design, development, implementation, evaluation. There is a feedback loop. Based on the evaluation, you may have to make mid-course corrections in the design, development, and implementation, either formatively or summatively. Let us take the curriculum design phase, phase 1. Main work that will be completed during the design phase will be deciding the objectives of the particular UG or PG program. What abilities the students must possess before he is joining the course, entry-level prerequisites. That is why we say, for engineering, the students should have studied mathematics, chemistry. For medicine, he should have studied biology. What abilities the students will acquire on leaving the course. At the time of completion of the course, what will be the professional abilities he or she will be able to have. What is the gap between B and A? That gap will be filled by the curriculum. Now, formulation of the objectives of the curriculum, how it is done by job analysis. What jobs the industries expect the students to do. What is the knowledge and skills required for that. Formulate the objectives and outcomes of the program. Specify the requirements, entry behavior, and what is the student input, what is the processing and the student output. Both have to be decided. The immediate result of the processing process is the outcome, and the objectives are what will happen at the end of the program or after 2 or 3 days of the passing out of the program. Then objectives are long-term goals or results expected of the program. Outcomes are immediate results. And objectives can be divided into large number of outcomes.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
He's not able to move the PowerPoint, so he's waiting.
Okay.
Sorry, I am unable to move my slide.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There
We
was
are
some
waiting.
obstruction, I cleared it.
Okay.
For obstruction. Avoid. Okay.
Yes.
Program outcomes and objectives. The student input. There is a program, instructional program going on, and the immediate results are outcomes, and the long-term goals are called objectives. So, what is the difference between objectives and outcomes? Objectives are long-term goals, outcomes are immediate results. An objective can be divided into number of outcomes. So, this distinguishes between goals, objectives, and outcomes. Goals are very broad, general. Objectives are immediate results expected out of the curricular transaction. Outcomes are long-term results. So as we come down, the specificity increases. Course objectives describe the professional competencies the students will be able to develop on completion of the course. Competencies include knowledge, skills, and attitude. Integrate the learning of individual units or modules, course objectives. They start with a verb like comprehend, apply, analyze, decide, develop, evaluate, etc. For data structures and algorithms, I have given some objectives like the importance of something, understand some principle, design and develop a solution. What are the outcomes? What is the difference between objectives and outcomes? The prerequisites are there, course description is there. Prerequisites tells what the learner has to know before he or she starts the course, and the outcomes specify what the learner measurably knows after successful completion of the course. So there is a change in behavior of the learner during the program duration. That is called course outcomes. Course outcomes are statements that communicate in behavioral terms, observable behaviors, expected performance of students at the end of the course. So now we move on to Bloom's taxonomy of learning outcomes. Cognitive domain, which deals with knowledge of theory subjects. Affective domain, feelings and values, the disposition, self-confidence, emotional intelligence, and things like that. Psychomotor domain, the ability to practically do things, skills. These are the main categories of human behavior. Employers prefer people who can perform tasks rather than only know about the tasks. So doing is more important than knowing. So what are the course outcomes? The same course, data structures and algorithms. The outcomes are more detailed, analyze something, explain some concept, describe some procedure, illustrate some concept, compare and contrast two things, synthesize something, provide solutions. These are, now we move on to the second phase, curriculum development phase. Curriculum design, we formulate the objectives of the program. In curriculum development phase, we are developing instructional resources, learning resources, instructional objectives that are necessary for achieving the objectives and outcomes. Tasks to be undertaken, sequencing the various courses, which course will be taught in the first semester, which will be in the second semester, selecting the content for each course, sequencing the units and topics, selecting instructional methods and instructional resources, preparation of plans for instruction, development of tests and other materials required for assessment and evaluation of students. Most important is, before you introduce the new curriculum, you have to orient the teachers, train the teachers to teach the new curriculum, both in terms of the content, subject matter, as well as the new methodology. Now, many teachers may need training on delivering online courses. So if you take a program, what is the difference between a program and course? Program is what the students have to learn for the entire 3-year BSc degree program. Whereas course is a particular subject taught in a particular semester, like English, physics, mathematics, thermodynamics, etc. A course can be divided into number of units. Unit 1, usually many units have 5 units. A unit can be divided into number of topics. Topics can be divided into teaching points. So a program is, let us say, BSc, and in that one course is, let us say, physics, and in that physics course, a unit is heat, another unit may be like electricity, magnetism, etc. In that unit on heat, the topic is heat transfer, the teaching point is conduction, convection, radiation. So this is the flow of the curriculum. What are the contents of the syllabus? Syllabus will have course code and title of the course. Prerequisites, what the students must already know. Core requisites, if any, if the students have to parallelly register for some courses. Anti-requisites, if the students have already studied some course, they need not study this course. These are the things. Number of hours allotted for lecture, tutorial, practical, project, etc. Credit assigned for the course. Course objectives, course outcomes, student learning outcomes still at micro level. Module-wise content, number of hours allotted, textbooks prescribed, reference books recommended. It is laboratory work, list of experiments, list of challenging experiments, and mode of evaluation of students. These are the components of the syllabus of the course. Now we move on to the third phase, curriculum implementation. Let us summarize. In curriculum design, we formulate the objectives of the program and the course outcomes and course objectives. In curriculum development phase, we develop the learning resources, instructional resources, and the tools for evaluation, as well as orient the teachers to use them. The third and curriculum implementation phase, the curriculum is copy is sent to all the affiliated colleges or the departments, and the teachers will be implementing them. So what is the difference between curriculum, instruction, and evaluation? Curriculum prescribes what is to be taught to the students within the prescribed duration of the program. Instruction specifies what will be taught is given by the curriculum, how the methodology of teaching is instruction. While the curriculum is implemented in the colleges, for example, if you take Anna University, 500 engineering colleges are there. The curriculum is the same in all the 500 colleges, but the instruction, teaching learning process, transactions vary. And the evaluation, in a university, the question paper setting is done by the university or autonomous college, in affiliated college, university setting. How to assess achievement of learning outcomes. So what to teach is given by the curriculum, how to teach is given by the instruction, how to assess is evaluation. While implementing the curriculum, I distinguish between two types of curriculum. Intended curriculum, this is the prescriptions in the curriculum document. It will be the same in all the colleges. Operational curriculum, this will vary from one institution to another institution. When an intended curriculum is taught in a classroom or given life through teaching, it becomes an operational curriculum. It deals with the processes of teaching and learning, organization of the class, and the milieu, instructional environment or learning environment in which instruction takes place. Now, there are a number of factors that affect the implementation process. Some factors are related to the student. Some factors are related to the teachers of an institution. Some factors are related to the instructional environment or the resources available in the institute. What are the factors related to the student that influence curriculum implementation? His aptitude or interest for learning the subject, proficiency in the language which is used as the medium of instruction. That is why now many people say, if you use mother tongue in the earlier first 5 years, the students will be able to learn easily. That has an effect. Entering behavior, what are the prerequisites they have? And motivation. What is the motivation for them to study the program? And factors related to the teacher. Teacher preparedness and teacher's resourcefulness. Whether the teacher is prepared to teach the particular subject, whether he is resourceful, whether all the resources are available to the institute, or can he borrow and improvise, make teaching aids. Lastly, third factor, factors related to the instructional environment. Relevance of the curricular objectives. For example, if you teach Sanskrit or something in an engineering college or medical college, they may not learn. But if you teach German or French, they learn because they find it is relevant to the job. And similarly, what you are teaching should be up to date. If you teach slide rule, now nobody will learn. You must teach what is relevant and modern, not what is obsolete and irrelevant. Adequacy of instructional time, whether the time available is enough to complete the syllabus. Instructional resources, whether you have multiple copies of the textbooks, availability of computer, licensed software, all these things. Instructional methods and procedures used. Are they using only chalk and talk method, or are they using technology-enabled and blended learning with classroom methods? Task orientation of the class. Some teachers are always very jovial, but they will not complete the syllabus. They will not be oriented towards the task. And the evaluation procedures used. Are they reliable, credible, authentic? There is now a lot of talk on how to evaluate students in this pandemic situation, which will be valid and reliable. And feedback provided to students. For example, if you conduct a test, whether you provide feedback immediately, what type of feedback you give. For example, if you conduct a test and give the feedback after 1 month, it will not be useful. Lastly, fourth phase, we come to curriculum evaluation. Design phase, we develop the curriculum. Development phase, we prepare the resources, teaching aids and learning resources and evaluation tools required for implementation of the curriculum and orient to the teachers. Curriculum implementation phase, it is taught in the classrooms, laboratories, and workshops. And I distinguish between intended curriculum and operational curriculum and what factors affect the implementation process, factors related to the students, teachers, and instructional program. Now we move on to the fourth phase, curriculum evaluation phase. Here we are not evaluating the students, we are evaluating the relevance of the curriculum, its effectiveness and efficiency. So this is curriculum evaluation. Why we should evaluate a curriculum? To bring the curricular content abreast of modern developments and remove the deadwood from the curriculum. We should not go on adding new and new things to the curriculum. When you add new things, at the same time you must remove irrelevant and old, obsolete things from the curriculum. How to improve the effectiveness of the curriculum? What is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency? Other reasons, review the entry behavior requirements. For example, if the school curriculum is enriched, the certain topics included in the first year degree curriculum, you have to remove and update it according to the enriched school curriculum. To identify how an intended curriculum is enacted, how it becomes operational, what factors affect and result in unintended effects. Now, for example, you may introduce project work in the curriculum. And if it is a group project work, how do we ensure the individual's contribution in that? So it may be an unintended curriculum. Some of the group members may not contribute to the carrying out of the project work. So it may dilute the effectiveness of the project work. So these are some of the things we have to consider when introducing curricular reforms. I told I will explain the difference between the effectiveness of the curriculum and efficiency of the curriculum. Are we doing right things? Are we teaching things that are relevant to the students? Are we doing it in the right manner? For example, if we teach certain things in a thermodynamics class or in a zoology class, are you using the right method of instruction that is related to efficiency? Effectiveness means what was planned, what was actually achieved. Determination of the extent to which the objectives of the curriculum have been achieved. So this is what NAC, NBA and other accrediting agencies want to know, the amount of achievement of course outcomes and course objectives. Efficiency is related to the cost aspects. What was the output achieved? How much input was spent? For example, if I give a particular work to two of my students, if both of them complete the work and give me the report is good, they have achieved what are things planned, that is they are effective. What was actually planned has been fully achieved. But in terms of cost, I asked one student, Janila, how much it costed? She says 600 rupees. I asked Dr. Lakshmi Narayana, how much it costed? That student tells it cost 1,500 rupees. So Janila is more efficient compared to Lakshmi Narayana because she was able to produce the same output spending less money. So this is regarding efficiency. That is why they use shift system in colleges. Same classroom, furniture, laboratory equipment can be used by two sets of students. Now for curriculum evaluation, we use three sets of criteria: outcomes, processes, and fit to standards. What are outcomes? Short range outcomes and long range ones. That is why we say outcomes are immediate results are outcomes and long-term results are objectives. Assess the extent of students' achievement of course outcomes. Processes, whether students take part in all the activities of the class, whether the students show interest in the program, what is the desired pattern of communication between students and teachers. Now, some colleges have completely paperless communication system now. So these are all the things. For example, library-based assignment, whether the students really go to the library, whether they do the work, whether they complete the work by sitting at home and copying or go to the library. So the instructional processes are very important. Then fit to standards, pedagogical principles. As I already told you, we have to provide feedback and reinforcement and sufficient practice in the instruction process, especially for skill-based courses, skill development, sufficient practice, hands-on experience with the guidance of the teacher is very much needed. There are two concepts, feedback and reinforcement. In feedback, we merely tell whether the student is right or wrong, just like the answer given at the end of the mathematics book, problem, solution. Whereas reinforcement, psychologically, we appreciate the student. Good work, well done, nice, keep it up. Communication principles, clarity of presentation, vocabulary used by the teacher, and multisensory perception compared with monosensory perception, whether they are adapted to implementing the curriculum. And the curricular principles, is there correspondence between what was intended and what is actually happening. For example, as I told, implementation of case study method, seminar method, pre-classroom method, use of various types of evaluation tools, all these things were planned. Whether they are actually happening in all the colleges, you have to check. Now, curriculum evaluation is done at three stages: formative evaluation and summative evaluation. What is the difference between the two? For example, if the cook who is preparing a soup and there is a guest who is served the soup he is drinking. So if the cook who is preparing the soup tastes the soup at the time of, during the course of preparation of the soup, that is formative. Then the soup is served to the guest when he arrives, and if the guest tastes the soup, that is summative. If the purpose of testing the soup by the cook is to improve the formation, We may add more salt or more butter to improve the taste. That is why it's called formative evaluation. Provide information to curriculum developers and enable them to correct flaws detected in the curriculum before it becomes too late with course correction. Summative evaluation is carried out after offering the curriculum once or twice. It summarizes the merits as well as the weaknesses of the program. Hence the notion of summative evaluation. As I told you, the guest who is served the soup, when he tastes the soup, he has two options. He may not say that the soup is bad. He will drink the soup, and if it is good, he will ask for one more cup. If the soup is not good, he will say, I had a high tea before coming here, so I don't need this much. He will need half cup undrunk. So this is the summative evaluation. Once again, my PPT is not there. Madam, my PPT I am unable to move.
Professor, I think you'll have to stop sharing it and then you'll have to share. Professor, you can just stop sharing. You click on stop sharing and then you share the PowerPoint. Hello.
Sir, I have informed him, sir.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam. I think he has to stop it and.
I told him to put it in the beginning.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Sir, excuse me, sir. Shall I share your PPT, sir? Sir? Shall I share your PPT, sir?
I think Professor is at the verge of completing.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes,
even
sir.
without PowerPoints, he can just go ahead.
Sir, you can talk to the PowerPoint, sir.
Sir, I have your PPT, sir. Shall I share your PPT, sir? Yes.
for the introduction, formative evaluation and summative evaluation. And I told the formative evaluation is done.
Your audio is not clear, sir.
Hello?
Your audio is not clear.
It is not coming. Hello?
Audio is not
Sir,
clear.
we can hear you, but the audio is not clear, sir.
Audio.
Yes, sir.
Audio is not clear.
Yeah.
Hello, now audio is clear.
Now it's okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Hello,
sir.
madam.
Now it's clear, sir. Now it's clear.
Yes,
sir.
sir. We can hear
Yes,
you.
sir.
The audio is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Continuous.
I understand that formative evaluation is done using the courses in the program. And the mid-course corrections as in the slide. And the summative evaluation and the students pass on for taking major decisions in the curriculum. Third phase is curriculum revision, curriculum evaluation, first evaluation, evaluation.
Audio is not clear, sir.
Yes, you can switch off your video, sir, so that we can hear you properly.
Audio is clear.
You can switch off your video, sir. You can switch off your video.
You have to mute your video, bro, sir.
மேல வை.
Oh.
அதுக்கப்புறம் தான்
Hello. Can the video, ma'am?
காய வைக்கணும்.
Please mute your video. Unmute your audio and mute your video, sir, so that
Are you able to hear me, sir?
even now it is not clear, bro, sir. Your voice is breaking, actually. It's not clear, right?
இதுதான் நகரம்.
Hello, sir. Is it clear now?
Now it is clear, bro, sir. Now it is clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Please go on.
Okay. Sir, I have distinguished between hello, formative evaluation, summative evaluation, and then how to revise the curriculum based on the results of summative evaluation. And finally, I would like to give some emerging trends in the educational process. First change is that there may not be a uniform curriculum for all students of a program. If you introduce the academic credit band as recommended by the new education policy, national education policy, the curriculum will be flexible. Each student can customize and tailor make a curriculum by registering for the courses for which he or she is interested within the framework of the university's prescribed credit framework. Then now students join at a particular time and leave the program at the particular time. So there is single point entry and single point exit. Instead of that, we'll have multi-point entry and multi-point exit. Students can join at any time and leave at the end of prescribed exit points. And most of the curriculum was traditionally delivered through classroom-based teaching. Now it is done through blended instruction, online and offline. And teacher-student ratio is fixed, whereas teacher-student ratio will vary in online and offline instruction. That is another thing. Now, when we move on to the fifth difference, focus is on development and maintenance of physical infrastructure, whereas focus will be on development of digital infrastructure in the new set of things that are coming. Examination will be held on fixed date for all students, whereas in the new things, it will be an on-demand examination. Students can take examination anytime when they are ready to take the examination. Traditionally, we have closed book exam, whereas this will be open book exam. And traditionally, examination will be proctored by invigilators, whereas emerging trend, it will be unproctored or surveillance by electronic tools only. So I will give a summary of what all I have done. Summary, I told about the concept of curriculum. I told curriculum is related to an occupation and it is based on objective related content, planned learning experiences, and criteria for evaluation and certification of students. Then I told about what are the criteria used for decision making, utility, variety, and flexibility. Then I distinguish between competency-based curriculum and academic-based curriculum development models. And competency-based curriculum development model will be more job-oriented and that will make job-ready graduates. And I told about the 4 phases of curriculum process: curriculum design, curriculum development, curriculum implementation, and curriculum evaluation. In design phase, we develop the objectives. Development phase, we prepare the instructional resources and teaching aids, learning resources. Implementation phase, we actually teach the curriculum in classrooms, laboratories, workshops, and computer centers. And there I told that the implementation will lead to the difference between operational curriculum and intended curriculum. And what are the factors that affect that? Told about teachers, students, and instructional environment. Then curriculum evaluation phase, finally, when the curriculum is evaluated formatively and summatively for making suitable changes, for increasing the relevance of the curriculum, effectiveness of the curriculum, and efficiency of the curriculum. I also told 6 aspects of emerging trends in the educational process. With this, I conclude my presentation. Any questions? I will be glad to answer the questions. Thank you.
Participants, you can unmute and ask questions.
PowerPoint stop please. PowerPoint வேண்டாம்.
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a question. Basically, I belong to Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. So I have a question regarding this blended learning which we are passing through.
Okay.
This blended learning is more focused on online classes and online teaching. So do you feel this system is very much compatible with rural areas? Is this going to survive for a long period, especially in this period in rural areas, because we don't have that much internet accessibility and facilities infrastructure required? So do you feel this system is going to work? especially in
Okay.
yes, sir.
I thank you for the question, the right question at the relevant time. Now, curriculum is fixed. How we teach will vary depending upon the facilities available. That is why there may not be uniform implementation because of the digital divide, rural divide, availability of power in rural areas, availability of network connection. All these things will affect the online instruction. What is blended learning? It is not pure online instruction. Online partly part of the program will be conducted through physical on-campus training. Part of the program will be conducted through online mode. And part of the assessment will be done by take-home exams. Part of the assessment will be done in physical situation. So there will be a lot of problems in a vast country like India, in especially Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, and northeastern states. I have done a lot of projects for them. The facilities available, and as well as in rural places, like if you take Ooty or hilly places, the frequent rains, availability of power connection, all these things affect the implementation of the curriculum. You are right. Slowly, there is a need to move on from physical training to blended learning, and some of the foreign countries are offering the entire program through online learning. We may not be able to go to complete online degree programs. That is why, as a via media, blended learning, initially you may have 20% of online courses, then it may go to 40 like that. We have to adapt to suit our Indian. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And one more point, just one important point, sir. It was an amazing presentation by you. And I would like to congratulate you for such a nice presentation. It was very brief and to the point. So thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening,
Sir,
sir.
good
I'm
evening.
Uma.
Go ahead, madam.
Good evening, sir. Sir, you told about program-specific outcomes, sir.
Yes,
Program-specific outcome, you quoted example regarding engineering core program, sir.
Yes.
But what about, for example, in arts and science colleges, we are having BCom as a program, but there are so many BComs like BCom professional accounting, insurance, and all those things. Therefore, what makes the difference between program-specific outcome and program educational objectives?
Okay, actually, you are right, madam. Very good question. Now, what happens is, when in an arts and science college, when you go for accreditation, you go for NAC. Whereas in engineering colleges, they go for accreditation to MBA or ABET.
Okay, sir.
So in ABET and MBA, there is a requirement that each college, whether it is affiliated or autonomous, they call it as Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions. An affiliated college is called as a Tier 2 institution. So it is given some exemptions from curricular requirements because the curriculum is centrally developed by the university. Whereas autonomous colleges and deemed universities are considered as Tier 2, Tier 1 institutions which have total autonomy for formulating the syllabus. So what they say is, in program outcomes or program educational objectives, whatever is prescribed, you are teaching. Even when a deemed university is there, you have to have one or two program-specific outcomes that are unique to that particular program. As you told, when you are having a program in BCom, can you think in which way your college is unique or distinctly different? How you can say your college adds something more? That is what curricular experts and accreditation experts want. Each college to teach something beyond the curriculum, even affiliated college, learning beyond the syllabus. So you may say, in addition to the curriculum units prescribed, we are including one more unit or one more course, non-credit course, as an optional course. And that course is taught by some person from a bank management, or some person from insurance agent. You can do something, you have to provide proof. What are the topics covered, who taught it, and how it was evaluated. Like that, it is not only specification of CSOs, it has to be followed by the details of the content, actual resource materials used, time allotted, evaluation done by the student.
Thank you very much, sir. One more point I want to make it as traditional practices and emerging trends. You told about single point entry we are only practicing, but nowadays also we are having ladder entry system is there, no sir? For example, second year.
Yes, you are right. That has come as a result of the World Bank project that was introduced in polytechnics and engineering colleges. You are right. That will become more widely applicable in all types of universities. That is because of the reason they want to recognize the prior learning of the student, give him credit exemption. Now, you must have heard about the lot of engineering colleges which are not getting good amount of students are getting themselves converted into skill development center. In the National Skill Development Corporation, sector skill councils are there. And there what they do is, when they go for this type of competency-based curriculum development, what exactly as you are doing, these things are happening. So, lateral entry, when a particular person says, I am a scooter mechanic, I already know all these things. So, you assess it and give him exemption from that for what he has already learned informally, not through a formal education. So, even for informal learning, competencies acquired by them, the skill development corporations give exemption. So their aim is the difference between the academic degree programs and skill development programs will naturally come down. The dividing line will become thinner and thinner. That is the final aim of skill development, the prestigious project to help unemployed youth. So this is my answer to you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
good evening, sir. This
Yes.
is Jagdal Lakshmanan from Gobi City Palayam. I just want your help related to mapping of these things. That is, graduate outcome and program specific outcome and the course outcome, vision and mission of the college. All these things are supposed to be
Yes,
mapped.
actually,
You
are right,
the map.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
There are, that is a very big process, madam. I will
Yes,
explain
sir.
briefly. Actually, in technical education, this is emphasized by accrediting agencies like National Board of Accreditation as well as
Yes.
ABET. So,
I know.
lot of work has to go to do mapping. There are specific methods of how to calculate the achievement of outcomes and mapping them with each with one another using tables and mathematical calculations. And there are experts who can
Yes,
help
sir.
you in that process. So it will be difficult
Software
for
also
me to.
seems, sir.
Software
Yes.
also is available. As you know,
Yes.
now MBA wants everything to be paperless completely.
Yes.
They even collect feedback from 10 or 20% of the sample of your students. They collect
Yes.
their email address and directly contact them and collect feedback. They collect feedback from employers, past graduates, and exit interview from the present set of students who are living. So, a lot of feedback helps in mapping, and also in the case of mapping of objectives and outcomes,
Yes.
revise the Bloom's taxonomy
Yes.
and that table between what type of knowledge you are offering, whether it is factual or conceptual or procedural or metacognitive, or what type of level, whether it is knowledge, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, creating, evaluating. These things, these tables are there. So a lot of tools are available. It requires some guidance from experts and teamwork by your colleagues in each department.
Okay. But graduate attributes we talk about, sir. Yes,
That is no longer there, madam. MBA.
Oh,
They have given
okay.
it up. They have given it up. Recent 2020 version, graduate attributes are there.
Okay. Okay.
Up to
Okay.
2019 they had.
Good evening, sir.
Only, yes.
Sir,
Sir.
is
Thank you.
blended learning and hybrid learning the same thing?
No, both mean the same. What is it? That is, we don't teach only by physical, some people call it as brick and mortar teaching. There is a classroom, desk, furniture, one teacher, chalkboard, students are there, screen, PowerPoint. This is called physical training or on-campus training. Online training can be through anything. It can be through video programs or through YouTube or any TV channel, or it can be through technology-enabled learning packages, or it can be knowledge-based tutoring systems, which will deliver the content based on the level of the student. It will deliver change. So the delivery will also vary. One of my students, Dr. Abdul Qadir, has developed a knowledge-based tutoring package for teaching engineering drawing to engineering students. So a lot of things are coming. So you have a mix of various ICT tools for teaching. Combine it with the brick and mortar teaching in various proportions. That depends upon the nature of the subject, type of assessment you are going to have, and duration of the time available for doing all these things, and infrastructural facilities available. That is what I told you. When you move on from brick and mortar teaching to blended learning, you should not only have very nice air-conditioned classrooms. Your physical infrastructure alone is not sufficient, but your digital infrastructure. Even today, I had some technical difficulties. These are all in the initial stages. So I am 73 years young. I am also trying to learn and master the art. So these are all the transition problem. In another 6 months, we will become experts in handling, making presentations in various platforms, conducting examinations through various tools like learning management system, etc. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Hello, sir. Hello, I'm from Pune, Maharashtra.
Yes.
Actually, sir, I'm working as a professor, teacher in teacher education.
Hello. Good evening.
Actually, I'm doing project on the learning outcome based curriculum development on B.Ed syllabus.
Okay.
And so, sir, my question is how the competency effect on evaluation. So, what is the
Definitely.
relation?
You are right, madam. Have you finished your question? Shall I go ahead and answer it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can.
Actually, we have implemented competency-based education in National Institutes of Technical Teachers Training and Research, NITT. There are 4 institutes in India. I worked in Chennai for 38 years. Other 3 institutes are located at Bhopal, Chandigarh, and Calcutta. So what we did is, instead of offering the subjects like psychology, sociology, philosophy, etc., or instructional design, teaching of mathematics, teaching of electrical engineering, we divided the teacher's role as specific competencies like using blackboard, asking questions in the classroom, increased communication skills, curriculum development, development of lab manual, like number of competencies we develop for polytechnic teachers and engineering college teachers. And once a teacher completes a competency, immediately the evaluation of the competency has to be done. And there, the main difference is we do not compare one student with others. Each student has to be evaluated on the basis of some criteria already set up. If he fulfills that criteria, he will be declared he has mastered the competence. If he doesn't fulfill that criteria, he will not be certified. I will give an example. For example, in the typewriting examination in all the states, they have a lower grade and higher grade. 30 words per minute, 40 words per minute. Even if we can type 39 words, they will not give you a pass. So it is a certification process and evaluation process. In normal academic approach, we compare one student and rank order students using a norm reference evaluation procedure, whereas in competency based, it will be based on criteria and reference. And there will not be comparison of one student with others, but comparison of each student's performance with the standards already set. Thank you.
So thank you. And one thing is, if we are criterion based evaluating, So if you are using rubric, so how
Yes.
should we go with learning outcomes? We should go, or we should go with
Yes,
the
you should have, you
competency
can,
based.
look, actually, madam, whether you call competency or outcome, objective, all are results of learning. So each agency uses different terminology. So students join the program, that is the input. You teach them for 1 week or 1 year or 1 semester, that is processing, teaching learning process. What happens after that is the result. That can be specified as an outcome or objective or competency or proficiency, whatever it is. And these are the things when you have to evaluate an outcome or objective or competency, whether each student has achieved that learning outcome or instructional objective or competency. And I read recently one nice article sent to by my professional associate, Dr. Abdul Qadir. That article I found the term instructional objectives used by teachers who are presenting the lesson or developing the curriculum. The term learning outcome is to be viewed from the point of view of the student who acquires it. Both may be similar or same. We call it as instructional objective if the teacher is specifying it. If the student is saying, I acquired this competency or ability, we call it as learning outcome. So what is important is whether you use the term PEO, PO, course outcome, course objectives or competency, within your institution, within your university, within that curriculum document or your accreditation record, self-assessment report, everything that across departments, across programs, you have to be consistent. There should be consistency. That is very important. The name, jargon, other things may vary. Even the same agency, previously one madam was asking about graduate attribution. It's no longer that. So things may change. But what is important is what is the expected result on the part of the students on completion of learning. Whether he has accomplished it or not. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, sir. I am Prabhu.
Yes, sir. Hello. Hello. Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Ask your question, sir.
I am Prabhu, MPhil part-time student, Education Technology Department from Bharidas University.
Yes, madam. Yes, sir.
Shall I ask question, sir?
Okay.
Shall we promote curriculum in higher secondary level?
I am not, your voice is breaking, sir. Your voice is breaking. I am not able to hear you properly. Can somebody help me?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now it's clear.
Repeat your question, sir.
Shall we promote outcome-based curriculum in higher secondary level? With reference to an example, biodiversity.
Okay. Any subject is not important, sir. You have to ask what will be the learning outcome, as I told you, when the student completes the course. For example, I will give, if you purchase a mobile phone, let us say you have purchased it on a Saturday evening. Sunday morning, you start working with the mobile phone with an instruction manual and try to learn. At 9 o'clock, your behavior, we call it as entry behavior. In 3 hours, you study the manual and learn how to operate the mobile phone. At 12 noon, you know how to operate most of the functions of the mobile phone. That is called the exit behavior. That exit behavior is the expected learning outcome. So for every class, also you can specify at the end of each class what will be the outcome expected on the part of the learners. So if you specify it in terms of observable and measurable behavioral terms like define, distinguish, compare, contrast, determine, find, that's verbs which are action verbs. We should not use the word no. For example, one of my friends and myself started learning how to ride a bicycle. I learned it perfectly. He didn't know how to ride a bicycle. It's a psychomotor skill. So what he did is, whenever some people ask him, do you know how to ride a bicycle? He would say, yes, I know. One day a guest came to our house. He asked my friend, do you know? He gave his bicycle, asked him to demonstrate. He was unable to do. That's what I told him. Employers do not prefer people who merely claim that they know things. You have to demonstrate that you can do things. So learning objectives, learning outcomes have to be specified. It can be specified for one semester, for one unit, or one topic, or one session, instructional session of 1 hour duration also. In terms of observable, assessable, measurable actions to be performed by the students at the end of your class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, excuse me, sir. Shall we conclude the session, sir?
Yes, yes. Thank you, madam. Sorry
Yes,
for some technical inadequacies that came.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Your presentation is very wonderful, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Amuda ma'am? Okay, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to the grateful. Now, I would like to thank Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University for giving permission to organize the 5-day International Virtual Faculty Development Program. Thank you, sir. Next, in turn, I wholeheartedly extend my gratitude to the respected Vice Chancellor of Bharathidasan University and Registrar of Bharathidasan University and their constant support and blessings. With great joy, I would like to express my thanks to Registrar in charge and Program Convener of this program. Thank you, sir. Next, I would great thank to Dean and Controller of Examinations of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University and Professor and Head Department of Educational Technology, Bharathidasan University for their continued support. Thank you, sir. Next, I render my sincere thanks to our resource person, the great senior professor, Dr. D. Pragatiswaran, sir, for excellent presentation on the topic of competency-based curriculum development. Thank you, sir, for your session is highly informative. The explanation of curriculum design, development phase, and implementation phase, evaluation phase, and emerging trends in educational process all are very useful for upcoming educators, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Next, in turn, thank our beloved friend, Dr. Amuda ma'am, organizing secretary of this program. Thank you, ma'am. Finally, I thank the pillar of this program, all the participants who are present across the country. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Amuda
ma'am? We'll wind up.
Thank you,
okay,
madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, HOD, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.